On November 14th, 2025, the long countdown finally reached zero. After nearly 17 years on South Carolina's death row, Stephen Corey Bryant was led into the firing squad chamber at Broad River Correctional Institution, a room he had feared, denied, and tried to outrun through years of appeals. Now there was nothing left between him and the end. He walked in alone, no family, no friends, only the steady footsteps of correctional officers and the quiet presence of a spiritual advisor who stood with him because no one else would. For the people of rural Sumter County, Bryant's name had become synonymous with terror. For his victims' families, this day felt like a distant promise finally coming due. And for Bryant, it was the last page of a story he had started writing the night his violence began. Grab your coffee, as I'll take you through what really happened in the hours leading up to his execution, what he ate, what he said, and how he spent the final moments of his life before sitting in that chair for the last time. To our amazing subscribers, thank you for standing with us through every heartbreaking case. And if you're new here, subscribing and liking the video is completely free, but it goes a long way in helping this channel reach more viewers who care about justice and truth. You're watching Verdict Vault. Stay with us for more stories that matter. The violence that eventually sent Bryant to death row didn't start with a plan. It started with a moment, unprovoked, unpredictable, and cruel. In the fall of 2004, when he was 23, Bryant drifted through small towns across eastern South Carolina, never staying long enough for anyone to truly know him. People who crossed his path later remembered the same things. Neighbors who once waved hello now whispered his name in fear. On the evening of October 8, 2004, that unease turned into something far worse. Along the Pocatello River, 59-year-old Clinton Brown was packing up after a quiet day of fishing, a routine he had followed for years. As he walked back toward his truck, Bryant approached from behind. There were no words, no confrontation, not even a warning. He raised a gun and fired a single shot into Brown's back. Wounded and alone, Brown fought to survive. He managed to crawl into his truck, drive toward the road, and flag down help. But his injuries were too severe. He died shortly afterward, leaving investigators with a scene that made no sense. No theft, no argument, no connection at all. And as detectives searched for answers, they didn't yet realize the truth. This was only the first crack in a storm that was about to tear through the region. The next day, October 9, 2004, Bryant's violence escalated, and this time it struck someone he trusted. His friend and co-worker, 36-year-old Clifton Gay, had known Bryant for years. They fished together. Their families mingled. Clifton had no reason to fear the man sitting beside him in the car that afternoon. Under the simple excuse of going out to buy beer, Bryant lured him down a rural back road. And without hesitation, without an argument, without a warning, he raised a stolen gun and shot him in the head. The betrayal was instant. The death was immediate. He left his friend's body on the dirt shoulder like it meant nothing. 2 days later, on October 11, 2004, he struck again. This time, the target was a stranger, 62-year-old Willard Titan, a quiet man living in an isolated part of the county. He used the same method he'd perfected, knocking on the door, pretending his car had broken down, acting harmless long enough to be let inside. Once the door closed, the mask dropped. He shot Titan 9 times. But the worst part came after the murder. Investigators later described the scene as the work of someone trying not only to kill, but to humiliate. Bryant burned the victim's eyes with lit cigarettes, a final act of cruelty meant to degrade even in death. While he ransacked the home for jewelry, tools, and anything else he could carry, the phone began to ring. It was Titan's daughter, calling from out of state. The first call went unanswered. On the second, a man finally picked up. "Who is this?" the voice asked. Kimberly told him she was Willard Titan's daughter. What came next froze her in place. "You can't talk to him," the man said calmly. "I'm the prowler." Then the confession, cold, proud, and deliberate. "I killed him 3 hours ago." A mocking laugh followed, sharp and quick, before the line went dead. But Bryant wasn't finished. With chilling detachment, he dipped his hand in the victim's blood and smeared taunting messages across the walls. "Victim 4 in 2 weeks. Catch me if you can." Repeated over and over, like a dare.
Before leaving, he arranged candles around the body, creating a scene that investigators later described as a twisted, macabre altar, a final insult left for the world to find. Stay with us, because the horror didn't end there. Exactly 2 days later, on October 13, 2004, Bryant struck again. This time, the man who crossed his path was 35-year-old Christopher Earl Burgess, a familiar face, not a friend, just someone he'd spoken to around town. They met by chance outside a small convenience store in rural Sumter County, where everyday life moved slow, except for the violence moving through it. They talked casually, nothing unusual, nothing that hinted at the darkness sitting just behind Bryant's eyes. When they stepped out of the store, Bryant offered him a ride. Burgess accepted. They drove along an empty back road, nothing but trees, gravel, and the steady thrum of tires on dirt. Then, without warning, Bryant pulled out a gun. 2 shots, one to the head, one to the chest. Burgess didn't stand a chance. Bryant dragged his body to the side of the road, leaving him in a shallow roadside ditch as if he were nothing more than discarded debris. No ritual, no message on the walls, just another life extinguished to feed whatever hunger had taken hold of him.
Less than 2 hours later, as daylight filtered through the trees, a hunter walking the area spotted the body and immediately alerted authorities. Another victim, another escalation. And still, no sign Bryant intended to slow down. If cases like Bryant's fascinate you, and you want to explore more shocking stories of crime, investigation, and justice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week, we dig deep into cases the world can't stop talking about. Later that same day, police finally caught up with Bryant. Officers surrounded his girlfriend's house, moving in quietly, methodically, because by now, they knew exactly what he was capable of. Bryant didn't go out in a blaze of violence or a desperate escape attempt. He was taken into custody without incident, but the calm didn't last long. Inside the house, investigators found the trail he thought he'd hidden. Stolen guns, property taken from the victims' homes, clothes matching witness descriptions. Piece by piece, detectives pulled together a picture of a man who had been spiraling into violence for nearly 2 weeks. On October 14, 2004, Stephen Corey Bryant was formally charged with 3 counts of murder, 2 counts of aggravated burglary, 2 counts of unlawful possession of a firearm, 1 count of armed robbery, and 1 count of arson. And investigators made it clear this wasn't the end. More charges were expected as they worked through the burglaries tied to his spree. But even behind bars, Bryant didn't stop being dangerous. In October 2005, while awaiting trial at the Sumter Regional Detention Center, Bryant launched a violent attack on a correctional officer. He punched the officer repeatedly, continuing the assault even after the man was already down, already defenseless. It was a reminder to everyone watching: removing Bryant from the streets hadn't removed the violence from him. The sentencing phase opened on September 2, 2008, inside a quiet South Carolina courtroom, one that had spent days hearing the details of Bryant's violence and now had to decide what the state believed was justice. His defense team tried to pull the focus away from the brutality of the crimes and toward the man who committed them. They painted a picture of a childhood marked by trauma, instability, and neglect. Abuse that, according to them, had shaped every violent impulse he ever acted on. They argued South Carolina failed him long before he failed its people. But the prosecution had laid out the facts in stark detail. 4 victims, multiple crime scenes, taunting messages, escalating violence, and a pattern of cruelty that seemed deliberate, not impulsive. On October 11, 2008, after hearing all testimony and weighing every piece of evidence, the jury delivered its decision. Stephen Corey Bryant was found guilty of capital murder. For the murder of Willard Teachin, committed during a burglary, he received the death penalty. For the killings of Clifton Gay and Christopher Burgess, he received life sentences. And for the remaining charges, burglary, gun crimes, robbery, arson, he was handed nearly 100 additional years. From that moment on, Bryant's world shrank to a single path: appeals,
motions, reversals, deadlines. For 16 years and 9 months, his attorneys, some appointed, some working pro bono, many outspoken opponents of capital punishment, filed every legal argument available. They challenged procedures, evidence handling, jury decisions, mental health considerations, anything that might slow or stop the execution clock. None of it worked. On October 14, 2025, the United States Supreme Court rejected his final appeal. With that single decision, the last barrier fell. South Carolina was cleared to carry out the sentence. A few days after the Supreme Court closed the door on Bryant's final appeal, South Carolina Attorney General Kristen Clarke filed the formal motion to set his execution date. The order reached him on October 17, 2025, a single sheet of paper that stripped away the last uncertainty he had left. State law is blunt. The execution must fall on the fourth Friday after the order is served. That date became November 14, 2025. On October 31, exactly 14 days before he was scheduled to die, prison officials notified him of his legal right to choose the method. He didn't hesitate. He selected death by firing squad, making him only the third inmate in the state to do so since executions resumed in 2024. In the days that followed, the world around him grew smaller. Bryant received no visits from family, not in person, not by phone. The final stretch of his life unfolded in near total isolation. The only people who crossed his path were correctional officers and the spiritual advisor assigned to him. Whatever he thought, whatever he feared, whatever he regretted, or didn't, remained locked behind the cell door with him. Then came the morning of November 14, 2025. At 4 a.m., he woke up for the last time. He showered, exchanged a few quiet words with a spiritual counselor, and was given sedatives, standard procedure meant to dull panic, not soften reality. As the hours passed, the prison shifted into execution protocol. By early evening, everything was in place. At 5:45 p.m., officers came for him. He was escorted from his cell to the execution chamber, a room designed for one single purpose. At 5:50, guards secured him into the execution chair with leather restraints. The coroner stepped forward and pinned a paper target over his heart. A black hood was lowered over his head, cutting him off from the witnesses gathering behind bulletproof glass. The warden read the execution order aloud as witnesses settled behind bulletproof glass. At 6:10 p.m., the 3 rifles discharged simultaneously, without warning. .308 caliber rounds tore into Bryant's chest in rapid succession. His body twitched with involuntary movements and faint reflexive sounds escaped, but neurological death likely occurred within seconds. At 6:20 p.m., the coroner pronounced him dead. Stephen Corey Bryant offered no final words. Stephen Corey Bryant left this world without speaking a single final word. Now that you've heard everything, the crimes, the trial, the final moments, what do you think? Was justice truly served, or did the system fail somewhere along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to see what you really believe.